Does automated provisioning improve collaboration? So I got a couple facts about this to sort of seed the discussion that we have of it. This is a screenshot from the 2019 State of Database DevOps report done by Redgate. And in this is finding number 4. You can, if you're looking for this in the database DevOps report itself, you'll see the number 4 on here. The question is, which of these best describe how closely your devs and your DBAs are integrated? And 40% said good. The biggest answer on the screen is, it's pretty good. We have separate teams, but can collaborate, and the DBAs kind of get involved as needed. Only 22% said great, where everybody is effectively working well as one team, right? So only 22% feel like they're actually on the same team. 13% said poor, where DBAs don't know what code changes are coming and they're deploying code and they're like, we don't know what's in here. And if things go wrong, it just like, is there anyone out there? 26% said okay. Yeah, oh, go ahead. What's it like to be in the 13%? Have you been there? Have you ever been there? I've been in the 13%. It's kind of lonely. It's kind of frustrating.
Is, and you get pulled into those meetings without any context, and you're expected to provide some sort of enlightenment to it, and it's just not how it works. It's not how it efficiently works. So definitely not ideal.
Right. Yeah, like when something goes wrong, you have no context for what went wrong because it literally just came sailing over the wall at you, and you're like, I don't know, I just ran into this yesterday.
Yeah, and then you're being pulled into those change meetings, and you're being given like literally hundreds or if not thousands of lines of code that you need to immediately interpret it and prove it's gonna go wrong, and with much context. So we want to be on the other end of the spectrum where proper DevOps approaches are in place.
Quite often those change approval boards are kind of like going up against a jury of your supposed peers, because you're given all this information right beforehand that you've never seen, i.e. evidence, and you're now, either having to make a case for, to be honest, I used to make cases for why I wouldn't do it and why I needed more time, because, the having it that late in the piece, is not acceptable, and, because mistakes get made. I don't have enough time to peer review it. I don't have enough time to get it peer reviewed by other people, and it's just one thing after another that just stacks up. And the change board, they're worried about what's going to happen to the business, and it shouldn't be that way.
So honestly, you're going to be in that perspective of not really wanting to advocate for the change, even if there's okay communication, because with okay communication, you only get involved when things are right. You're still like, I don't really know what's in here. And it's in the DBA's interest, who's generally charged with stability, to be like, we shouldn't trust this. Right?
Yes, that's where the DBAs get their fame of being neurotic and averse to changes. That's where it all started.
Yeah. Another interesting finding from that State of Database DevOps report from 2019 is with these silos. Aside from what we've talked about with change management, what are other problems with having the silos between the database administrators and DBAs? And the number one in there is increased risk of failed deployments or downtime when introducing changes. Slow development and release cycles is number 2, and the inability to respond quickly to changing business requirements is number 3. So everything on this list is pretty painful. Maybe, I don't know about other can be pretty painful too. But these things are attributed, people think, having this break between teams makes these all worse. And that number 1 of increased risk of failed deployments is exactly why this conversation isn't going well at the change approval board. We're really, really worried about this. So if we look at this, 40% said team integration is good, But even good is just getting involved on an ad hoc basis. That doesn't mean really giving advice on all changes and having input in all places and doing co-review of everything, at least at a high level. It's just sort of whenever we can get it done. So 79% did not say, hey, we're effectively working as one team. People are really quite separated. So our question today, since we're talking about automated provisioning, is automated provisioning actually going to impact these silos at all, or is it actually going to just kind of give the people reasons to not talk to one another? Is it going to make the silos even sort of stronger because then we don't even interact as much? How does provision actually play out in the real world?
It most definitely improves it. It most definitely improves the quality of the relationship between teams, because we're always going to have, so if you have to manually refresh lower environments, it's always going to be a massive, labor-intensive and time-consuming operation. So as your database grows, each of steps of the process is going to take longer, it's going to become more complex, especially now with all the compliance and governance regulations that are in place. So if you're a developer, you're probably thinking that the process should be faster, and the DBA is you're blaming the DBA for slowing you down. And if you're the DBA, you're probably blaming the devs for creating work from doing all the things that you'd rather be doing. So having the ability to automatically offer these ready to consume, anonymized and self-serviceable copies of your database, it's not only immediately removing those pains from this very fundamental, critical and necessary task, but it's also on top of all that starting to provide immediate return of investment for the business, because now you have your DBAs and your developers focusing on more efficient and better ways to deliver value for their customers. So it's like win-win-win-win. Everyone is happy, and most definitely it improves the team relationship.
Yep. I think one of the key things there was the word standardized tools. And part of that is part of the problem of the siloed teams, in that, hey, I've created this query in Visual Studio using Entity Framework, and it's going to generate this, and I'm going to hand it over to you to go and deploy it. Or, you know, and some of that output might be that you've got to run a SQL script in Management Studio, and by the way, I'm going to give it to you at 4:30 in the afternoon. Whereas the key thing about automated provisioning means that one of the reasons why the DBA can't provision your databases is because the DBA is working on manual deploys, and the data is so big that the DBA has to use, you know, either custom in-house, you know, written scripts that take a wee while, and we've got to obfuscate the data. Whereas by having a platform, and a platform that's self-service, so the DBA is involved in the sense of ensuring that everything is nice and secure in terms of how the tooling works, but it starts this whole conversation of bringing it together, and that's the cool thing about automation. People think, well, I'll just do it. Automating's going to automate myself out of a job. No, what it's going to do is, if you've got a platform of tooling that you both are using, both in terms of DBA and devs, it allows you to start talking about the common goal. The common goal is to get a system provisioned as quick as. Suddenly the DBA is not having to manually watch something, having to deal with, you know, the bad exceptions associated with their code. I've been there. I wrote beautiful code until it broke. And you know, so it's actually a bridge between the two camps, shall we say, or the two silos, because again, it comes down to the common goal. Hey, let's spin up a system that, one, is automated, two, we know that the data is being sanitized, and it's around self-service. I think once you embrace that, people are going to in fact talk more, and they're going to talk. Once they see the magic of automation, they're going to go, hey, what else could we automate?
Right. And that I think is really important because so I have been the DBA who is in charge of provisioning the huge environment that took minimum week and a half, usually 2.5 weeks to set up, because we had to very carefully restore things at the right times and set up replication and do all this stuff, right? It wasn't just a matter of restoring the databases, but even restoring the databases. We were doing it with just backup and restore, and even that took a long time.
Yep.
And I've also been the DBA who accidentally deleted half of the environment of a dev environment with automation, which normally wouldn't be that big a deal, but it put that team without a working like QA environment for 2.5 weeks, right? Which was kind of a big deal, kind of a big problem. They were real nice about it, but no one wants to have that conversation. So automated provisioning can really alleviate those negative things that can happen between teams of I'm always waiting on you or you messed up my stuff. But I do think it is true that like no product you buy out of the box is going to help your teams collaborate, like it's going to make them collaborate. Like it can make it easier to collaborate, but you do have to take that extra effort to say, hey, we are doing this as part of a larger thing, and we want to use the time we're saving for other things. Because if we just throw this in there, yeah, it can make us more efficient, but it isn't necessarily gonna it's not gonna force us to collaborate.
No,
right?
And, in fact, that's one of the underpinning things of DevOps, that people who try to download DevOps, first of all, fail because you can't. And two, they forget the most important thing. It's actually people and culture. And if you don't have a culture of collaboration, guess what? You can have the best tools in the world and your process will still fail.
Yeah. So this tool can work really well even if you don't have the culture, but it's not going to make the culture come.
No,
Do
that. But it can be a catalyst because, it's not.
I think it can be a huge catalyst because you can make huge gains with this in terms of the ability to spin up environments really quickly.
Gains, absolutely.
Yeah. Because this technology can let you create an image and then people, you can even apply masking.
It's easy to use as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say exactly that. Like it's so easy and so comprehensive that it's just so easy to use that it naturally elevates the collaboration. But of course there is a business effort to implement that on a higher level. But it's just so much easier, and the benefits are so immediate that I definitely encourage everyone to try to adopt that.
Yeah. So this slide, what are the cases other than DevOps environments where SQL provision can make a difference? So if you're using waterfall, for example, to me, even in a waterfall deployment where maybe we're releasing every 3 months, but then we're still going to have to do a big development environment refresh generally after we deploy every 3 months. Like even there, it can still really, really help us a lot because that deploy can be really slow. Are there other use cases that you've come across for this for different things than DevOps?
So I have, it's why I have wrinkles. I have worked in a waterfall environment, right? And I mean, even in that situation, I still, regardless of waterfall or agile, whatever, before any deployment, I'm always going to refresh my pre-prod environment, and I may, or staging or whatever. And in a waterfall environment, I know pretty much when that's going to be. It's going to be right at the end, and we're going to do a lot of testing. But look, the underlying thing is I want to do it as quickly and as standard as I can. And if that means that, again, it's automated, that it's just a job that kicks off and it notifies people, then look, it doesn't matter if you are not in a true agile environment, or if you not doing DevOps. That's all good. The main thing here is about provisioning and protecting your data, your database down to either lower levels or just having that nice dry run before you're about to deploy to prod.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Richard McCaskill, who's a product manager at Redgate, has an interesting story about a client who actually, they want to run a bunch of different data variation tests each night. And they like to use SQL provision to clone out a bunch of different copies of a database and run these tests against that latest version of the data in a kind of scale out processing model. And it works well for them, just the combination, the way their code is written. They don't want one giant monolithic SQL server with this all running against all of them. It enables them to do an architecture and set up the environment really quickly in a way to run those data load tests, which is really, really, I think, an interesting use case. So in some ways, it can replace, well, not in some ways, in many ways, things that you would use SAN cloning for can be anything, one of those things. This can really enable you to do in a flexible way with PowerShell commandlets and like automate it and make it user friendly, which is really cool. So,
absolutely.
Kind of I always try to think of like new fun things that might be interesting to do with it, just because it's so fast.
That is a good use case. I'd be keen to understand a little bit more about that. That's pretty cool what they're doing.
I think it's financial data testing is, I think.